Karleen, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to talk to you. We've already been chatting. I know we're going to have a great conversation and connect on so many levels as moms and entrepreneurs. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And yes, we did already have a very lovely connection before the call.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes you get moms and entrepreneurs together, and it's just like bees in a hive. It is like
It's,
the right people
it's,
meet, and it's why I do this podcast. It's what keeps me going. So, thank you so much for being here.
you bet. Thanks for making space for me.
Absolutely. It's such an honor. Before we dive into all of the juicy details, give us a little sense of your background. I mean, you have got some amazing experience as a hostage negotiator. I can't imagine the nerves of steel that must require.
Uh, you know, I kind of look at it and go, I think it takes more nerves of steel to parent because hostage negotiators have a SWAT team. Hostage negotiators,
Right.
they have a team of people that support them and rally and do all the things and give them all the celebration or the straight talk or they do all of that stuff.
Right.
But parents don't. Women, men don't when we like function in our own lives.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah, so I have seven children, and my youngest is 29,
Mhm.
and my oldest is in her 40 or in their 40s. And and then I've always kind of had, I was sharing with you, I've always had an entrepreneurial flair.
Mhm.
I did that. I did some home-based businesses. I did some demonstration businesses, and I did really well in those. But I've always had kind of that hankering for, um, the innovative, creative, the gritty things that happen in business, and being able to see what my own chops are made of and what they're capable of. And then I went into conflict resolution, and I did it primarily because I just felt called to.
Mhm.
I have a husband who suffered a brain injury, and so I was his caregiver, and I've been his caregiver. He looks great, but it was an early stage, meaning it was before brain injuries were really relevant or discussed,
Mhm.
and so that was like almost 30 years ago,
Mhm.
and and so I had to find my own path in that world.
Mhm.
So years after that, I became a mediator, went to college, got my master's in conflict resolution and negotiations, went to the courts to mediate in civil and domestic. I loved the work. I just loved all the work, and I loved how it changed me. And
Mhm.
so, and then I went on and became certified in hostage and crisis negotiation. And and I found I was kind of made for this world. I think it could be seven kids
Mhm.
and being involved in their lives and a husband with a brain injury and kind of that dysfunctional family that, everybody grows up with, but everybody has their own unique story in that dysfunction and their own place that they play in that.
Mhm.
And so we had that. And so I think that it just built me to be extremely resilient and gritty and kind of have to figure out what survival of the fittest looks like for me.
Mhm.
So,
That's an incredible story. And I just love that you just show up and you own like, yeah, I've been through all of this and I'm good. I understand relationships and I'm able to like sit there as a leader and help people probably at their worst times in their lives navigate some
so true.
really difficult situations. So,
So true. And I think like just I don't you think we women need other women that like have a steadiness? And I think
mm,
we all have a steadiness in things or something. Like there's amazing people who can paint. They have
mhm,
such a steadiness in that, or crafting,
mhm.
or organization. And we just need women and each other that with a steadiness and being able to step up and be that steady in that space.
Yeah, I just I have to take that in for a minute because I think that that is spot on. And I have been that person for so many people and kind of
Yeah.
was behind this podcast as well because, and you're helping me understand the importance of that. I,
And just for you and just for your listeners, the thing is, I am so impressed with you because I know we scheduled this. So I want the listeners, we scheduled this months ago.
Mhm.
And so I went and did research and I found out who you were and what was going on. And, but I was so impressed. And yet, we get to the table and you and I were chatting and just talking about that. And I thought, does the world know? Does the world know her steadiness of, hey, I've got this little idea, and I want to go out and yeah, I mean, who wants to listen to that? Who wants to know that? But I know that feeling, and you bring that steadiness, and that's what I saw when we first reached out. It was like there's something there, and we women need it, And I don't know if you just serve women, but I would imagine that you do because of the topic and the content.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, anyway, uh, when people like I was sharing my story, kind of the sound bites of it, when you decide that you're going to accept your call
Mhm.
and your gift, then all of a sudden you open your arms up wide and you just see who drops in. You see who walks in, and you put your arms back out and circle around them and bring them in. And then, you honor the space. And I know I used to work with 4,000 women in business when I started one of my networking groups. And, that's what they needed. And that was that steadiness. And I see you. I see you.
Thank
Tell
you.
me.
Very kind of you to say. Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you and me right here. I gotcha.
Yeah, because even in a space among other female and mom entrepreneurs, that sentiment is not the same. And
Right,
so I do, I really appreciate that because not every person that is on the podcast has that appreciation for other mom entrepreneurs, honestly. So I definitely feel that, and I'm sure listeners feel that too. And yeah, it's just a reminder to no matter what arena you're in, seek out your people. You
amen.
know,
And I don't know if that's appropriate. I don't know, but it was
yeah. I mean,
that's so good. That's so good. Seek your
they're
people.
out there, and just because you think you should be among, um, you know, sympathetic ears or people doesn't mean that you will be. And so, um, but they come along and they will. And I appreciate you so much being on the podcast because, I think like I explained, we're not entrepreneurs in a vacuum.
Right,
We are primarily, so many of us become entrepreneurs because we want to show up as parents better. And so it just sounds like you have such a mastery and a willingness to be present to understand relationships and to convey that to others. And so many people are in this reactive state, right?
right.
Instead of being there to participate and to see other people and to understand, especially as parents, there's probably no more sensitive time as the teenage years.
It is a treacherous walk, right?
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
treacherous walk in so many ways. And I don't mean treacherous as in it's miserable. I mean treacherous as in you're wondering about every step you take. You're
Right.
wondering about every decision. You're wondering, do I do this one or do that one? How can it hold true forever? What does
Right.
that look like? And so that's what I mean by treacherous. It's like
Yeah.
you're constantly, because you have such an investment and such a desire for their
Hmm.
best life, that yeah, you walk that treacherous walk, and that's why you do it alone.
Hmm.
So so the thing is that, like I said, SWAT teams are there. but who do you have here? And that's why I show up the way I do, is
Right.
because I get it. And
Right.
that those relationships are the pinnacle of our life.
They
So,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about your book, The Confident
Oh,
Teen Blueprint. I
yeah.
mean, which focuses on empowering parents, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
So,
is.
yeah, let's so I'm a parent of a teen. I mean,
Congratulations. And I'm sorry.
I know.
I
No, it's
feel this.
actually, really not every day is flowers and rainbows, but
Mhm.
I love being in the seat to watch the people that my daughters are becoming.
Mhm.
And so
How many daughters do you have?
I have two daughters. One,
And two children, or do you have
uh-huh,
boys?
yeah, two children, yeah.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's beautiful. Yeah.
I cannot imagine adding five more.
I didn't either.
So my hat is off to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I also as, parents of any gender child is going to want them to be confident, but I think girls especially are at a time when we're trying to foster that even more than I think we ever have before in society and raising daughters. And as a confidence coach, I love to have guests who can help us raise more confident children. So, what are some tips that we can put into place for that?
Remind me, but well, there's one comment I want to make,
Mhm.
and that is because I said it's treacherous and the good and bad, and it's not always roses, okay?
No.
But the thing is that we're going to come out of this, and I've come out of this. So my youngest is 29,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and so I was talking to one of my daughters the other day, and uh, she was sharing about how she was giving a talk.
Mm-hmm.
And in that talk, she was saying, we've given our mom such a hard time, but she's stayed the course and she's continued to do these things. And we haven't been fair by, the things that we handed her. And she went on and on. And so she's relaying this to me. And as a mom, I'm listening, right? But this isn't the first time she has shared this conversation and given a different talk and thrown me in the talk. Okay. And so I had to stop her and this is momhood. This is what we do. So I had to stop her in that conversation. And we've had it probably 4 or 5 times where she has said the same thing. Mom, I'm so sorry. The things that we must have done to you. And so I said, sweetie, I said, let me be very clear. I said, loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done in my life. And I think we gift our children when at least we know that.
Mm-hmm.
If we know that loving them is the easiest thing, then all those unflowery days and the treacherous walks that we take, all of those things become easier. Because you know what? At the end of the day, the thing that matters is that relationship. Where is that sturdiness? And have you established a relationship in a way that you can tell the unflowery days and you could talk about them out loud? Or you can go, shoot, I totally blew that one. And that's how they know me. They know me as that kind of a mom. I'm, I'm very direct. I'm straightforward. My focus doesn't change. It doesn't waver much. I have a few rules, not many, but I stick to those rules very hard. But at the end of the day, loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done. So everything can wrap up in that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that. And then, yeah, confident teens. Confident teens means confident adults. And confident adults means confident mothers and fathers rearing kids. And that's the beautiful thing as I've now watched my own grown children have children and watch them use some of those same techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And they even come back and talk about it. So there is a beauty and a cost in rearing confident kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you talk about that. We don't realize how much raising confident kids is actually doing the internal work on ourselves.
right? Yes. I think that that is the golden nugget out of this whole, the what we're going to spend time together on
Right.
is the internal work. If
Yes.
you do the internal work, you get the
Hmm.
external.
Yeah. So I imagine in all of your experience, parentally and professionally, you are well aware of the common pitfalls that we kind of fall into when we're trying to communicate with our children. And so, what are some of those things that we might not be aware of that we could improve on to better our relationship and our connection with our children?
Sure. What a great question, Angela. I think some of the common pitfalls that we can fall into that we don't recognize until it might be later and we've built patterns. One of them is trying to parent like everybody else,
Mm.
um, trying to follow social trends, trying to, like, for example, giving our kids a phone.
Yeah.
I have a grandchild that had a phone at 7.
Mm-hmm.
My own kids didn't have phones till they were 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to negotiate that all those years when
Right.
they were younger about mom, can we have a phone? Can we do it? And it was like, yeah, tell me why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if an emergency comes up, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the pitfall. What if an emergency comes up? I said, take somebody else's phone. That's what you can do. Just like I had, like I would have to do.
Right.
Um, or if well, what if I'm at school? They have phones in the classrooms too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm betting you can get to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was those kinds of things that I had to look at because I felt like the cost was higher than giving into the trend.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just that. I mean, so that's a pitfall is following the social trends, following what everybody else is doing, assuming that what other people tell you is also what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of that, I think about how, Susie comes home and she's upset and the friends aren't getting along. And what we do as parents is we go, well, that friend of yours, she's no friend. You don't understand. That's her. That's her problem. It's not your problem. No, it looks like it's Susie's problem. And if we did that, then we're more engaged in their experiences rather than alienated from them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at those things, it isn't the other girl's problem. It is my daughter's problem. But now the problem is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I don't know if Susie's told me the whole truth. So now I've got to find out, and learn a little bit more and be interested in it. And then I've got to help her navigate what next? Now, I was a straight shooter and I cut things to the quick because there were 10 people in my house. Not only did I have the 7 children, but I also usually had somebody living with us and
Mm-hmm.
somebody that wanted to change their life around, and they were usually a teenager. And so they would come and live with us, and we'd follow the rules, and we'd have to work them through and acclimate them to the house rules and those kinds of things. But so I would cut things to the quick. So if it was something like a friendship, very easy for me. I'd say, where are those friends going to be in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
You're 10
Yeah.
or you're 13. Where are they going to be when you're 23?
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly we change that conversation would change from, she was mean or she said this, she said I was too fat kind of thing to it's more of a conversation of, well, what are you doing in the next 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
How significant is this conversation? How
Yeah.
significant is this experience? And my kids found out through that kind of a dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah, I guess that doesn't, I guess it's not as big as I thought it was. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I was trying to minimize their
Mm-hmm.
situation. I was trying to refocus and help them understand
Mm-hmm.
how significant this really was, which was about this big and not this big.
Right.
Um, and then suddenly you could design the future with them
Right.
and say it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that that's so important as a parent to be able to do that because our children don't have that perspective. Like everything feels so big in the moment because they don't have that ability to look back on much of their lives, right? So everything is a giant big deal.
Mhm. Right. And if you do, yeah, if you go into it like, well, like you said, it's the inner work, you
Hmm.
know, Is it a big deal to me? Am I going to make it a big deal? Am I going to follow? Am I going to roll down this hill and I'm going to make this important? Am I going to make this the pivot, the pinnacle of her life or his life or their life? How does that look? They're struggling with moving. Um, I think one of the pitfalls that we run into as parents is we look at their life and we don't consider them. I remember being told, and I don't know if you were too, but you don't know what love is. And I'm 13 and I'm going, yes, I do. I do too, but it maybe wasn't yours. It
Mm-hmm.
maybe wasn't your definition. So one of the pitfalls we fall into is we assume we don't include them because they're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And instead of including them and walking through their perspective and our perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what another thing that we would do is that we'd always do a family meeting before any big decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so another pitfall that we look at is minimizing their role. And when they're teenagers, do we adults understand that means pre-adult.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-adult. That means in just a few short years, they're going to be making decisions for you in policy or in work or how they work. They're going to be showing your reputation by how studious they are or how committed they are or their work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all going to come up.
Right. Oh yeah, and I think it's also just it's really interesting to be in the position of your kids being old enough to reflect who you are back to you.
Yes, it's been quite a treat. You're in for a ride.
Right?
It never stops. It never stops.
Yeah. No, I think that those are just such incredible points. And I really love that, especially you brought up. And I think it's a relatively new thing in our society too, is giving children like humanity and
Mm.
treating them like people with thoughts and ideas, regardless of whatever age they are. And that's something that I've certainly done with my kids. And um, they can really tell the difference when they go to school, for instance, and teachers or administrators or coaches don't treat them as the people that they are treated as at home. And so it really empowers them to, navigate those people that treat them like a people, that treat them well.
I think there's such a value in that. And I think that that's what made me such an innovative mom of my day was because I've always thought that way of them. And I remember parents would go, how come it works for you and it doesn't work for me? How come they're treating you that way? My teenager won't even come near me. How come your sons treat you like open your door or talk and say you're a princess to them? Why do your kids do that?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that it's that humanity and providing an equality, not for lack of better words, not a doormat parent, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not that girl,
Mm-hmm.
but if you provide them an equality in the room, then
Mm-hmm.
they get a say. And it's the old adage, if people get a say, then there's a lot greater buy-in from them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, this has been, 40 years that I have believed this philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an innovative thing of my day when I was doing it. And people did really kind of raise an eyebrow and go, what is that? How
I
do
think
you
it's
do
so
that?
innovative, especially in the midst of older family members, um,
Correct.
that you just really can't care what they think of
Right.
of
Or
how.
you care, like for me, I do care. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to be there at 9 o'clock. Or I've been plenty of times up at 3 a.m. talking to that teenager
Mm-hmm.
and trying to work through those issues. That grandparent, that aunt, that neighbor, all those people, they're not going to be there for you.
Right.
They're not going to be there to take care of your kids in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So do you, but make sure you're grounded
Mm-hmm.
in what you know to do and what you believe in, like don't miss those those mud puddles that
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about just a minute ago.
Yeah. No, it's so important. You have to have such an inner. sense of self as a parent and who you are and your own compass, which gets back to that inner work that you
Yeah,
have to do.
yeah.
So yeah, it just all points back to that as a parent. So yeah, let's talk about your time as a crisis negotiator and those stressful situations. How did learning how to navigate that translate to parenthood? And what are some things that we can learn from that as well?
I know I was on a crisis call with a 14-year-old. And so that's, this is your audience right now.
Yeah.
Um, and we are very, so if you want really good communication skills, um, I teach a class on it, but
Hmm.
the reason I'm saying that is because you have to be really candid,
Hmm.
not, not callous,
Mm.
candid.
Hmm.
A lot of times we get into that trap of thinking, well, if I and you take this really hard-nosed look, and I can, but I've already developed the relationship.
Hmm.
So I can't say, you know what, where are you going to be in 10 years? It's not worth it. Come on. I can do that because I've been doing it so many decades, right? I can do that because I did it through so many kids. But I was on a crisis call with a 14-year-old, and if I could tell and deliver a message to your family or your podcast family, it would be this: to get her out of that funk that she was in and it doesn't always work. We're not 100 percenters, right?
Hmm.
But for the most part, what she needed is somebody to actually listen.
Mm.
Just hear her. And we say that as a cliche because we as parents don't go find the people that can teach us how to listen. We go, oh, I know what listening is, of course. And I did have a mom that did that with me. So I had a mom and she goes, look, Karleen, I know you already know the skills. So just tell me what the skills are. And so I said, okay, well, this is a skill, curiosity, but you got to use it a certain way. Oh, yeah, I get it. I know. I know. I use curiosity all the time. Okay, then I'll go use that and I'll fix this. And so her curiosity was sitting her daughter down after she had done something that was, made them upset. And she sat down and she goes, did you really think you were going to get away with that? And it was like, so when I say I'm on a crisis call with a 14-year-old, and if I could tell your podcast family anything, it would be her thing that she needed was to be heard, not the cliche that, remember those landslides, those traps that we were talking about, not the cliche that your girlfriend is talking about. I'm talking about soulful, deep-seated, heartfelt listening. I mean, the kind of inquiry or curiosity that is looking into the heart of that 14-year-old
Hmm.
and saying, hey, what's going on?
Hmm.
What happened that brought this about? Is this the way you feel? Is this what you want? How do you feel about your mother?
Hmm.
Is she causing this problem? Was it her who said that, or is it what you thought? Very
Hmm.
candid, not callous. And so when I went through that, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, ah, my heart just wrung out for her and her mom. Because here's the thing, I know we love our kids. I understand it, but we instantly make these snap decisions that say, oh no, I know what listening is. I know what hearing them means. And in reality, because I use mediation, hostage, and crisis negotiation, I found 5 skills in that
Hmm.
that they all use that could solve all these issues
Hmm.
that you normally deal with day to day.
Hmm.
And being able, and one of them is the curiosity.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is go in to learn, go in to really dive in and understand where that comes from. Had a mom that her daughter was going through gender identity issues, and it's becoming such a profound thing. And number one, you got to know who you are as a parent and all that stuff. But she came to me and she goes, Karleen, I need to take the class. Just teach me. And I said, okay, well, let's do this. And so we went into it and I taught her about the power of curiosity. And I did it in the way that I normally teach it in classrooms or, in groups. And so she went home and now they've been divided. And we're talking about a good year and a half. The daughter just has stopped talking. She's like getting more defiant. And the way she got defiant was in how she dresses, how she disregards when you're talking to her. She'll look away, do that teen thing that you do where you just go, ugh, and you look away. She's doing all of those triggers that make parents upset. But the reality is, go in and learn. Where's that coming from? How do you feel about that? What does it look like for you? And number one, we found out she had mislabeled the thing she was considering as a gender. And so she had mislabeled it because when you go to all the millions of definitions that they have out there, and so really listening to them, really learning about it. And so all of a sudden they had this huge long conversation. And while I don't subscribe to go in with the hardest conversations first, she needed this. But the daughter came away going, Mom, I haven't talked like that in such a long time.
Mhm.
This feels so good.
Mhm.
Mom still didn't find, she still wasn't agreeing with where the daughter was in those choices. But you know what? She found that relationship.
Mhm.
And that's more important because when they have their next question, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, instead of following the social trends, they might come back.
Mhm.
They might talk to you and they might clear the air. Suddenly that conversation in that family wasn't as big anymore.
Yeah.
And then the girl was able to process
Mhm.
and find that space. So,
That's such a powerful story. I mean, our family has been through things like that, and that I think could have turned into much more of a crisis had we not been. And it's like I think parents in that situation stick to what they think society expects them to, or what their parents expect, or their peers, other parents expect them to do.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so it is so powerful to, like you said, get curious. Like,
yeah.
what is causing your child stress? And really, why are you having the reaction that you're having? Your own behavior. And
Mhm.
what is that about? Because I think so much of parenting is really examining your own beliefs.
Your own beliefs and then landing wherever you're going to land and
Right.
holding to it and knowing how to defend it and knowing how to explain it and knowing. Somebody just asked me this week, a man asked me something about the sacrifices of men long ago, like the early days, right? Sacrifices. And, what do you think if you had to live, if you had to take that philosophy of those sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
and, like the kings that were kings when they were 12 or kings when they were teenagers, right? What would you think today? And I said, um, it's interesting. I think I would have more love, less tolerance. And what I think is that we blend those two words because you can't stand as a parent, you can't stand on a principle that you believe in if you're worried about somebody else's tolerance of you or permission of you, or if you're looking at that. You have to rear your family in the culture or the climate environment that you believe in and that you can defend,
Mm-hmm.
that you can stand with.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably have a lot more love for people. And I mean, I've always believed in that. Have a lot more love, but less tolerance because now we're getting to the point where tolerance is like the leader of love.
Mm.
Like that's what you do. You tolerate and you say everything is okay. But in my home, not everything is okay. It is not okay for my children to throw food.
Right.
Right? It's not okay for them to scream at me. It's not okay. But in a tolerant space, I would say all of that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
Plus, I
No,
don't want him to think that you could do that anywhere.
yeah, I love that you mentioned that. It's like acceptance doesn't have to come without boundaries or understanding. And, we
Really
don't
well
have
said.
to, yeah, we don't have to give of ourselves and who we are and what's important to us um, without those boundaries. Um, so I think that that's a really powerful statement that I haven't heard put exactly like that. So,
You're welcome.
yeah, yeah, thank you for that. Um, and two, I think you might have touched on this, but talk about the Savage theory of resolution and how that can apply to our family and our business. Like, how can we use that? Because we're resolving things all the time in our business life too,
So true. This is the communication tool
right?
of all time. And it's such an innovative idea. Nobody else teaches this because
Uh-huh.
they can't. It's trademarked. I created it. I wrote it. And I trademarked it as a Savage theory of resolution. And it's 5 skills that you can use to resolve any conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that work, intimate relationship, teen relationship, 3-year-old relationship. We're rearing our 4-year-old grandson right now. Guess what? He is a great negotiator and he knows how to bring it to. He just looks at me and he puts his hands down and he just says, and he'll start talking slowly. And that's when I know, okay, we're in his space right now. Get that skill out and hold, right? And so anyway, so these skills I use even today. So people can look at me and go, well, your kids are 29 and up. No, I'm dealing with a 4-year-old right now. So, and the thing is it's kind of cool because it just recycles
Mm-hmm.
and it is confirmed for me. It still works.
Yeah.
It still works. So the 5 skills are Savage theory of resolution are the 5 skills. And the first skill is curiosity. And it really means becoming an exceptional learner. If
Mm-hmm.
you're going to learn how to change a tire, are
Mm-hmm.
you going to tell the guy, nope, you're wearing the wrong clothes, using the wrong tools, you're not doing, you're going to shut your mouth, you're going to go in and learn, right? You need to be an exceptional learner. You need to know what real exceptional learning looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to practice real learning because we've lost that technique
Mm-hmm.
as parents, as adults, we've lost that technique. We spend so much time in assumptions and negative thinking that go to assumptions. And we never think to ask. We never, because we already know. That's a problem. So curiosity is skill 1. The second one is their attitude. And it's the attitude that you come to the table, that you're willing to be helpful, but you're not going to solve it. Because and so it means kind of letting go of a little bit of power, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of control, because you're not going to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to solve it. If
Mm-hmm.
you and I are in a conflict, we're going to solve it. You get up and walk out of the room, I'm coming back because we're going to do this. And I'm going to come back with a different language, meaning like somebody just his pattern. I was just dealing with somebody and his pattern is when he gets frustrated and irritated, he gets up and walks out
Mm-hmm.
or he gets off the phone. So he was talking and he was very frustrated about something. And so he goes, I'm going to go now. And so I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." What? So, but then I came back and so I messaged him and I said, hey, so something I've noticed is when you get frustrated and irritated, you get off the phone. I said, but we didn't finish the conversation. So let me tell you what my talking points are. And so then he came back in and got back in the conversation. And it was like, great, that's beautiful. So the attitude is I'm here. I'm here for it. I'm going to take it, but I'm not going to solve it. Number 3 is the master listening. And what that is I've coined it as kind of a story mapping, not the kind that's used in corporate, but story mapping, because when you talk when you're in tension, stress, when you're in tension or in stress, you talk in bullet points. You only give the highlights. Think
Mm-hmm.
about that. When your child talks to you or teen talks to you, they give you the highlights. They don't sit down and go, well, I went to school at 8, and when I got there, my friend was waiting for me, and no, what you're going to do is when I got to school, Josie, she just came out of and she just started yelling at me. She was so angry, and I don't even understand what happened. So master listening is talking between the bullet points and filling in the gap. Was she coming from home? Was she already there? Like, was she getting at what's the setting? When you're doing that, you're piecemealing. But here's another like hidden gem in this.
Mhm.
If you do these things, you will de-escalate their tension. And so suddenly, by the end of talking to you, they're going to be calmer. Well, guess what that does? That gives them the ability to think, not stress, not the fight or flight, but then now they can think,
Mhm.
process,
Mhm.
take complex sentences and put them to, and consider them complex concepts. When people are in stress, they hear sound bites. So
Mm.
they only hear that you're disappointed. They didn't hear that it wasn't all your fault. They just heard you were disappointed because they only hear it in sound bites.
Mhm.
So master listening helps to do that. Number 4 is connection. And
Mhm.
that is the phrases that you say to ensure that we're on the same page.
Mhm.
So, and what it is, it's the statements from a 50,000-foot view.
Mhm.
So if I'm talking to you and like we were talking and you said, wow, it's been a day. And you said, it's been a really rough morning. There's been a lot going on. You were saying all these things, right?
Mhm.
A connection statement might be, sounds like there was something going on today that maybe didn't go right. And you would say, how would you respond to that? If I said, sounds like you had a morning that just things kind of fell apart.
I would be like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I would feel
And
understood.
those are
Seen.
that's exactly the what you're looking for. Because
Mhm.
when I make a connection phrase
Mhm.
like that, and you say, yeah, things didn't go right. Yeah. Then I know that I'm getting it, and I
Mhm.
know I'm getting you.
Mhm.
So now suddenly we have that connection.
Mhm.
Now you're going, so I can say something else and she's gonna get it. And we can progress through this conversation. Number 5 is reframing. It's taking all this information and then putting it into more of a question format.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a statement format, but it can be a question format, which is, so now that we know,
Mhm.
now that we know your morning started off bad and, you know, Charlie didn't get this done and somebody got burnt and all these things happened. So what do we do now?
Mhm.
And that's where you go in. Your attitude is not to solve it because we're going to solve it. So what do you want to do now?
Mhm.
How do you want to take this information? How do you want to process that? When we were talking about the mom who was gender identity with the daughter,
Mhm.
after all it was said and done, how can I best support you?
Mhm.
I still don't approve of this, but you matter more. So how
Mhm.
can I show you that it matters?
Mhm.
Or how can we have these talks in the future? Because I do want to keep learning about you. And I
Mhm.
just do want to understand. So that's a reframing. So 1 is curiosity, 2nd is attitude, 3rd is master listening, 4th is connection, and 5th is reframing. And mediators, hostage, and crisis negotiators use all of these skills.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing about it is mediators to hostage negotiators have between a 60 and an 89% chance of success.
Mhm.
And an insider told me in just their world of counseling that their counselors have a 10% success rate.
Wow.
So when you're looking now, it's not that counselors aren't useful, they are. I don't
Mhm.
want that to be misunderstood, but counselors help you dissect you.
Mhm.
Dissect why you. Why do you do this? What caused this? How does that look? What are you going to do about it? That's what they're dissecting.
Mhm.
These skills will deal with situations.
Mhm.
Situations of you're feeling like I'm angry. Situations like I'm angry and I need to share this with you. Situations of this didn't go well today.
Mhm.
Situations of I want a closer relationship with my son and I don't know how to get it.
Mhm.
These are the situations that these 5 skills can address. So when you think about applying it in courtrooms and hostage and crisis, and
Mhm.
they have a huge chance of success, this is why I brought these out because I don't want crisis situations. I don't want hostage. I want families. I want adults who are working in the workplace to be
Mhm.
able to utilize these skills.
Mhm. Well, I love that. I think so many people think that it is what it is, and they are just reticent to the situation being what it is. And you shining a light on these are really intentional skills that we can learn. and
Yeah.
benefit from. So I think that that's so important. I know we're running up against time, but I would love to hear your thoughts on how you balanced motherhood, and or there is no balance but juggled
Yeah. Yeah.
the all of the work that you've done with the crisis negotiation and being a mom to 7 children.
Um, well, I'll tell you what I tell people that ask me that same question,
Mhm.
and that is balance is a perception.
Right.
It's not a truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we're trying to, again, get in that trap of we're trying to fit somebody else's definition of balance. And when we go out and listen to all the experts, they're saying this is what it should look like. I remember a school policy that they were coming out with from the federal level. And the policy said that teachers need to be the new parents to kids and teenagers. And it was a policy that I kind of bucked up against, and because I didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Not because, parents were taking such an interest in their schoolwork. That wasn't why. It was because didn't have a place there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because what they were saying is kids should, when I totaled up the policy and I looked at it, out of the week, they were endorsing our teenagers spending approximately 2 hours at home with parents.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest was with civic leaders, ecclesiastical leaders, schools, teachers, administration, going to sporting events, going with friends, everybody but parents. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of why I bucked up against it,
Mm-hmm.
because their definition of parenting was not my definition.
Mm-hmm.
Balance is not a truth, it's a perception.
Mm-hmm.
My ability to balance
Mm-hmm.
could flex. And I didn't ever feel like I didn't have a work-life balance issue. I've never felt that
Mm-hmm.
because it was about my perception. Do I feel like my kids feel that I love them? No. Okay, well then I'm going to go in and I'm going to be more efficient in how I do that, more effective in how I do that. When I see the 4-year-old grandson acting out, I look at him and I go, "Do you need attention? If you need my attention, tell me that. Tell me that, because I don't need all the whining. The whining distracts us. Tell me what you need. I need a hug. Okay, then I can do the hug." So that's what I'm talking about, perception.
Mm-hmm.
Work-life balance is perception, it's not truth. You need to figure out and watch your world, your own world, not your friend's definition of your own world. And you need to be extremely truthful about it. And you need to be able to look at your world and go, I feel like I'm disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
That inner voice, I feel like I'm disconnected. Well, then there you go. That's where you need to put some time in.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be like 7 hours a day.
Right.
I remember one of the policies was you need to give every child an hour a day. That was the health policy in this program. And I remember looking at it going, that would be 8 hours a day. When am I doing anything else? Like undivided attention to this one child. When am I doing anything else? And heaven forbid somebody scratches, falls down and gets a skin knee. It just wasn't possible. Do
Kill
you
your
see?
hour.
Right? Right. You were signed up for 2 o'clock. But could you imagine the stress I would have put myself through if I actually believed that?
Mm-hmm.
That in order for my kids to be confident, well balanced, contributing, all those things, and feel loved, that I had to donate 8 hours a day to just one child per person. I couldn't do it. What would that do? That would give them a mom that was so strung out,
Mm-hmm.
that was so guilty, that felt so much shame, that felt so inadequate. And guess what I would do? I would pass that down to my children.
Yeah.
And there's no space for that.
Yeah, I mean, there is no balance, but also there are so many times when we outsource our own judgment. And so anytime we can reel that back in and go, no, is this working for me? Is this something that I believe in? Is this something that feels true to me. I think it's always important to check back in with yourself.
So true. So good. So we're doing the work-life balance based
Yeah.
upon our own soul and our own
Right.
family, own household. What's happening there?
Oh yeah, because I used to be that person, and I was stressed out all the time until I realized I can't be everybody's parent who doesn't want to be a parent, wants me to take care of their kids and do all the things,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not take care of my own family. But anyway, it has been so wonderful talking to you and connecting with you and just getting a glimpse of your wealth of experience and knowledge. If you had a takeaway or take a few takeaways for listeners, what would that be?
You're the right person for the job. Um, and you have the right love, you have the right bandwidth, you have the right ability, you have the right tools, you have the right intelligence. You're the right one for the job. But be honest about it, because a lot of us will go, oh, I'm the right one for the job. That's it. No, if you're the right one for the job and you feel this little voice in your head going, huh, I need to go figure this out, or huh, I need to do this better, then do those things better. Go figure that out, whatever that is. So you're the right person for the job. Trust that. Trust it.
Yeah, I believe that too. We're the perfect parents for our children. And, it's very unique and you can listen to some of what people have to say, but again, it just comes back to you knowing you and you having that inner compass and developing that.
Yeah.
So where can listeners connect with you? I'm sure they're going to want to dive more into all that you have to offer.
Thank you. That's very kind. If you go to my website, karleensavage.com, and you do a /parents, you
Mhm.
can get the digital download of my book for free.
I love that. And I'll leave
Yeah.
for that in the show notes.
Okay. That sounds great. It's been such a delight, Angela,
Same
to
here.
learn about you, to see you, to hear you, to see what that greatness looks like. And it's just been a delight. Thank you.
So kind. Same here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.